Oh my, what a pleasant surprise. So I've been playing Nioh all day, and I really want to talk about my first impressions with this game. And I know what you're thinking, only a few hours. You really think you're gonna tell me about video games, lady? Why yes I am. Because I'll be honest guys, the first few hours of Nioh have left an incredibly good impression on me, and seeing the overall reviews for the people who have beaten the game, I can confidently say that this game starts out good and will continue to be good. But saying it's just good probably isn't enough for people. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let me yell about Nioh. And big disclaimer guys, so there's no misunderstandings, I have not beaten this game, and I've only had a few hours with it so far. From my understanding, this game is at least 70 plus hours long with content, so obviously it came out today. I am not gonna know every detail about Nioh, but I'd like to talk about my experience, what I think about the game, and some chatter that I've been hearing about it, a little bit of controversy around this game. Bis a baby bit. So let's get going. So let's start off with the basics. Nioh is a game created by Team Ninja, the people behind the Ninja Gaiden series, Gaiden, or whatever the heck you want to call it, and Dead or Alive, you know, those games. Now, from my understanding, this game has been stuck in development hell for a really long time. It was announced back all the way in 2004 or 2006, from my understanding, and it was just one of those ideas from Team Ninja that was just on the back burner, and now it finally came out in 2017 of all times, but it's here. And people's first initial response to this game when it was announced and it was shown what it was going to be specifically, it's Asian Dark Souls, and you know what? That comparison is relatively valid, yes. So this game is incredibly inspired by the Souls series, you know, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, all those things. So at first glance, a lot of people just said, oh, it's a Dark Souls clone, it's just Asian Dark Souls, Samurai Dark Souls, blah 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 blah. And again, a fair comparison, because a lot of the main mechanics in this game are, yeah, they're ripped straight from Dark Souls, there's no hiding that, there's no denying that. However, it's a little unfair to just jump the gun and dismiss this game as a Dark Souls clone like people did with Lords of the Fallen and some other games. And while it is very much Dark Souls inspired, Nioh does have enough new things into it that really give it its own identity. It's got some amazing ideas that are not in the Souls series at all, and it very much feels like a Team Ninja game. Comparisons or not, at the end of the day, Nioh does things like Dark Souls, and it does things, in my opinion, better than Dark Souls, and things Dark Souls doesn't even touch on. Of course, the similarities of Dark Souls are very apparent the second you start up the game. The level design is incredibly similar to Dark Souls. You have shortcuts, you have bonfire-like things like shrines, interweaving areas that kind of stack on each other. Death is very much a factor, just like it was in Dark Souls, so that's no surprise. And the combat and leveling up is very much based off of stats and precision and all that jazz. Risk versus reward. That is the core stuff in Dark Souls, and that is some of the core stuff in Nioh. Oh yeah, and there is a summoning feature. I haven't had a chance to play around with that yet, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a PvP thing like invasions in Dark Souls, but from what I know, there is a summoning system of some sort. Haven't had a chance to play with it. I don't know, I'm antisocial, but it's there. But hey, if you're gonna jack something from Dark Souls, summoning is the way to go. It's a great mechanic, why not? But other than those just basic design choices from Dark Souls, Nioh does enough differently, and I'm super impressed by it. One of the biggest noticeable changes is the story. Yeah, Nioh has an actual plot, like with cutscenes and voice acting, and things aren't left to mystery like they are in Dark Souls, where you have to like read item descriptions constantly and fill in the blanks and what the heck am I doing here? Nobody knows. Nioh has a very up and front plot. It's interesting, it's got a main character, it's got side characters, it has a tangible story that I can semi-understand. It's also more vibrant than Dark Souls. You don't have this crushing atmosphere 24/7. Things are colorful and even funny in some cases. So from an atmosphere and story standpoint, it's night and day with Dark Souls. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of the story. Again, I've only been playing for a few hours, but it is set in the 1600s. Obviously, it's centered around ninja and samurai culture, and the main character is one of the first Western samurais based off of real history. So there's some kind of ground to it. There's also a lot of demons, a lot of magic, a lot of hoodoo voodoo. But again, not getting into the details of it. Don't know what the heck's going on yet entirely. But I am intrigued, I'll give it that. Another thing that's incredibly different about this game is its structure and design. Now, I know I said that the level design is incredibly similar to Dark Souls, but that's only in specific areas. As a whole, it's completely different. It's mission-based, where you go to these select isolated areas that are Dark Souls-like in design, but again, they're small. It's not like this big, massive world that you can walk from point A to B. There is a map, you can select missions, there are optional things, there is a main quest. So the route to progression is a lot more broken up as compared to Dark Souls or Bloodborne, where the whole thing was a big interconnected world. That isn't there. And as a personal preference, I kind of like that. I know what I'm getting into when I select a mission. You can see levels, you can see all the details, you can see everything that is going to be in that area, but it still maintains that mystery. There are secret little areas you can find, little nooks and crannies, doodads. I love it. I like this design. And as much as I like Dark Souls linear open open world design, if that make any sense. I know that's kind of a, contradicting itself, but you know what I mean. For the sake of knowing what I'm getting into, I prefer Nioh. And speaking of knowing what I'm getting into, this game has a ton of extras. Like I said, when you're at the map, there's the main quest, or you can do side missions where you can just get new items, fight some dudes, do some extra stuff. There is a lot of extra content in this game that is considered optional, and what's nice is that I know it's there. I don't have to guess if this thing is optional or not. Nioh would just tell me, yeah, this is optional, you should go do it. And I know for a lot of people that's a huge draw for Dark Souls. You don't know if this boss you're fighting is even necessary, and it doesn't mean one is better than the other, but it just comes to the term of preference, and I prefer this. Because guys, I am a busy person. I don't got time to go find a boss, spend hours of my time grinding, getting the absolute crap beaten out of me, just to find out that, nah, you didn't have to do that to win the game. I don't like playing guessing games. I got crap to do. Although the one thing I'm not particularly on board with yet is the loot system. The loot system is a lot more randomized than it is Dark Souls. You get a lot of extra junk you don't really need. There's a lot of stuff, and while there's a lot of customizations and outfits and all that stuff, it's a little overwhelming for me. I hate picking up like 8 billion katanas I don't really need. And while I love the variety in Nioh, oh my god, I'm just drowning in these things. And again, that's a personal preference of mine. The fact of the matter is, it's not like Dark Souls, where if I kill a dude, it's guaranteed to drop a certain thing. So that's just kind of a toss-up for most people. I don't know. If you have a preference, tell me. I don't care. Of course, personally, where Nioh blows Dark Souls out of the water is the combat system. There is a lot going on here, and it's very satisfying. There is a series of weapon classes that you can choose, along with weapon skills that you can dump points into for better attacks, and then depending on what weapon class you're using, you can switch stances from low to medium to high, and that changes the entire way that the weapon moves and swings and speeds and all that stuff. It's a lot of stuff to play with, and it gives you a lot of options. There are so many ways to play this game, and no one is going to play the same way twice. It's just more to work with as compared to Dark Souls, where even though they kind of shook it up with Bloodborne, there just isn't that many ways to hit a dude. It's limited to a few buttons, but in Nioh, there is a lot of stuff to learn and master. My personal favorite right now is the axe. It hits hard, and if you do a low stance, you can hit people relatively fast without having crazy wind-ups. So it's, again, personal preference. I've played around with the sword, and I haven't had time to play around with all the weapons, but they have range attack weapons that are super useful. There are obviously situations where one weapon will work over another, and I like that because it makes you want to switch things up. Not to mention, there's also this crazy spirit animal junk where you can just summon the power of like a shark or a dog or whatever the heck you want, a bird, and it just messes people up, and that's a huge core mechanic. It's also super useful for bosses, and while there is a meter attached to it and you can't use it all the time, I don't feel like this underpowered shrimp because I have this trick card in my back pocket where if I'm getting slam jammed by this dude, I can just hit a button and then I am guaranteed to hurt this guy at least a little bit, so I feel somewhat victorious. I feel badass playing as William. But even though I'm kicking butt and taking names, when anything is Dark Souls like, what is the biggest thing people ask about? Is it hard? And to answer that, yes, it's hard, and it's challenging in all the right ways. I have not died yet in a situation where I felt the game was being unfair to me. Anytime I died, it was because I messed up, so it sticks to the core value. Hard, but fair. But the difference between Nioh and Dark Souls difficulty is incredibly different, and it's because of one main reason. Nioh explains to you how its mechanics work from the get-go. There is an incredibly detailed tutorial. It tells you how leveling works, how combat works, the best ways to survive and be victorious. While as compared to Dark Souls difficulty, Dark Souls just sticks you in a room blindfolded and then starts beating you with sticks until you figure out how to get out of the room. Half of Dark Souls difficulty is because you are ignorant towards half of its mechanics, while Nioh is incredibly upfront about what you can do and how you're supposed to do it, and it expects you to master its skills so you can quote-unquote get good. And again, this all comes down to preference. Do you prefer not knowing what you're doing and then learning as you go, or do you like everything to be told to you at the get-go and then you want all the challenge thrown at you at once? Now, and I can't believe I'm saying this, as a Dark Souls veteran, I played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 through 3, and Bloodborne. As someone who understands the Souls series and gets its difficulty and can adapt to it, I haven't found Nioh too terribly hard yet. It's very manageable, and if you are familiar with the Souls series, then it will click relatively fast. Obviously, there's different mechanics, there's a lot more stuff to work with, but both games put a mega emphasis on don't get hit to not die, and then you just wait for the enemy to flail their arms in the air until they hit nothing, and then you just go in for the kill. It's very much the same concept, but when I say the challenge feels right with Nioh, I mean it's because the enemies feel like they're on the same level as you. Stamina is a huge factor in this game, and when you run out of stamina, it's bad news. You can't move, you can't do much. So stamina management management is super important, and then your enemies also have the same thing, which means if they run out of stamina, then they're exposed, they can't swing either, and you can see these things. That's what's nice. And also, this is a big design choice that I really prefer over Dark Souls, is that enemies do not detect you right away the second you step into a room. You can sneak up on people and then just bash their face in with an axe. You can pluck off people easily in this game, and this game really focuses on the 1v1 scenario, where it's just you and another dude, and then the best dude wins. And it's kind of important that you stick to a 1v1 scenario with enemies, because if you get surrounded by dudes, you're bound to get hit. And while it is relatively easy to dodge attacks because windups are really big and you have a lot of momentum and movement in this game, you get hit maybe 3 times and you're dead. It's very unforgiving in that aspect. Easy to dodge, hurts when you get hit, and that's really where the challenge is. So far, there's only been a handful of situations where there's been like maybe 3 or 4 guys in a room, and even then, if they're all in the same room, I can pluck them off. But one of the things that just bothers the crap out of me in Dark Souls is that the second you walk into any room, suddenly everyone is alerted that you're there, and they all come swarming at you, then kicking you in the face, and it's awful. You get overwhelmed so quickly in Dark Souls in some situations, and oh my god, is it annoying. Like seriously guys, how many times have you walked into an area in Dark Souls and then you just got completely smeared across the wall by 8 dudes doing the same thing? At least in Nioh, enemies feel powerful but sparse, and I can take them on one at a time if I'm smart enough. And I'm not talking like Dark Souls, I'm gonna sit on the edge of this room and then shoot arrows at each individual person until they waltz up to me and then I stab them in the face. No, I'm talking the game is designed and really wants you to take on a room of 4 dudes one at a time in your own little safe corner. And I like that. I like that a lot. And again, the games look drastically different. Art design, flashiness, particles, it's brighter, it's more vibrant, all that jazz. And personally, big fan of the samurai aesthetic. Seriously, that is what drew me to this game in the first place. If you like samurais, you like that kind of culture, Asian culture, it's real good. And this might interest the people who are like hardcore graphic nerds, because while this game is currently a PS4 exclusive, it does have graphic options. The first thing that you see when you boot up the game is, do you want to have high resolution with a 30 FPS, or do you want action mode, which kind of downscales things but runs at a solid 60 frames per second. And for those who really don't understand the importance of frame rates in action games, 60 frames per second can mean the difference between life and death in some situations. It is designed for precision, and your reactions can be a lot faster depending on the frame rate. So the fact that this game gives you options and understands the importance of a locked 60 frame rate is nice. It's good. I appreciate that kind of stuff. So if you want to see something pretty while having 30 FPS, you can. If you really want to see all the precision in the fighting, you can have 60 FPS. And from my understanding, there's even more options on PS Pro. Of course, I'm working with a standard PlayStation because I'm cheap, but whatever. Graphical options in a console game. What world do we live in? Oh my god. I know I've done nothing but kiss this game's butt in this entire video, but honestly guys, my first few hours of Nioh have been so awesome. I love this game so far, and I'm so excited to keep playing it. Critical receptions have praised this game non-stop so far, and I'm joining them, guys. This game is good. It's very good. I don't give out number scores, but if I did, it'd be high. I don't know what that tells you, but you know, do what you will with that information. I'm super excited to keep playing this game, and who knows, I might even like this game more than Dark Souls, and that's saying something, because Dark Souls is by far one of my favorite series of all time. I mean, I've played and beaten every single one, and Nioh is just an outstanding example of how you can take a familiar formula and change it enough to where it becomes its own identity. And hey, if some of these changes seem unappealing to you, that's fair, that's fine. Obviously, these things are not for everybody. If difficulty isn't your thing, probably don't pick this up. If you like subtle games with a strong atmosphere and deep lore, this is probably not the one you're looking for, because there's this guy, you know. This is a thing that happened. But if you like the Soul series and you don't mind any of the differences I just mentioned, please pick this up. It is very much worth your time. I know I'm going to be playing it daily until I beat it. I'm super involved with it, and I honestly am very excited to make a for beginners on it if I ever beat it. Who knows? I don't know if I can get that good because I'm having a hard time with the boss right now, but hey ho, I can dream. I can try. But I'm gonna be that lady. Don't believe the haters. Give it a shot. See if you like it. Who knows? Make your own assumption. But it's, so far, bun seal of approval, pretty good. So that sums up my first few hours impression of Nioh. Lordy, I am excited to just get absorbed in this game and frickin' cry when I get killed over and over and over again. Oh, it's so satisfying. And real talk, guys, PlayStation has been just killing it with these exclusives. Xbox, I don't know what the heck you've been doing with your time, but yikes. It's kind of worrying, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of things coming out for the PS4. We got Horizon Zero Dawn coming out soon. Persona 5, if it ever comes out, if it gets delayed again. Anyway, but yeah, PS4, pretty good. Glad I bought one of these. I feel like one of those hip, cool kids, you know, with the new gadgets and stuff, jumping on the the hype train while it's still rolling. Anyway, if you have played Nioh, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. You think this is the absolute crappiest Dark Souls clone you've ever seen in your entire life, and you think it's absolute poo-poo garbage? Go ahead, leave a comment. I don't know. I'm having fun. You can't take that away from me. I dare ya. Anyway, bye-bye, 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 bye. Let me tell you guys, I have been trying to get my sleep schedule fixed. I have a gym membership, and I told myself I'd wake up in the morning and go to the gym. But, no, here we are. It's 6 in the morning, and I'm editing this video, and I'm excited. You know, I feel good, even though I'm really tired. Anyway, this channel is sponsored by Gamefly. Gamefly is a great, cheap service to rent out new games so you don't waste $60 on trash you regret buying. If any of that sounds interesting, use my custom URL down below to get a 30-day free trial of Gamefly. And hey, if you're kind of iffy on Nioh, you know, you could always rent it out using Gamefly. Use my thingy. It helps me out. I'm really tired. I think I'm gonna go to sleep now. Yeah. Do the thing. It does help me out a lot, alright? Good night, everybody. Good night.